What's up, everybody? It's Sam with Rowdy Alternative. Today we're with Reed Barton. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Good, dude. Long time coming. Been wanting to talk
Yeah,
to you.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm stoked to be here. I've been looking forward to it, man. Ever since you asked, I've been looking forward to it.
Hell yeah, man. And a little disclaimer for people listening. If they hear me sniffling, it's because I have a fucking cold or something. So I'm going to try to get away from the mic if I do that.
That's okay.
But
Yeah.
anyway, man. So we were just talking before we signed on here. You're starting a gig, little side gig. You want to talk a bit about that since it's in town?
Oh yeah, man. Here in Nashville, I've been here about I guess 7 or 8 months now, and I've been loving my time here. I just started a new job working security at a bar downtown, as a bouncer, so to speak, at JBJ's, which is John Bon Jovi's new bar, and
Hell yeah.
it's super cool, man. We just had our orientation, just should be opening actually at some point in the next couple days, so I'll have my first shift this weekend, but. Super stoked. I did that back in Texas at Billy Bob's.
Oh
So
wow.
pretty familiar with that world. But yeah, man, I'm super stoked about it. Excited to see who all comes in, and just getting to meet all the people, and just I love that atmosphere. I'm comfortable in that atmosphere, so in that bar scene. So but yeah, it's just a way to make a living, man. A lot of people here in Nashville do it. A lot of songwriters I know have a side gig, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a means to an end. You want
Yep.
everyone wants to do the music thing full time, but yeah, we'll get there. So
Yeah, man. And it's funny you mentioned that before we started about that. I feel like there is, at least from an outsider's perspective, I feel like there is a weird stigma with like having a side gig and not being the full-time artist, or you know what
yeah,
I mean? Like
sure.
is that a real thing like within the community, is or is that kind of accepted like yeah, we all got to make money? How does that work?
I mean, I don't think that it's nothing to be ashamed of, for sure. I've
Mhm.
definitely talked to a lot of my peers who are further ahead in the game than I am, and everybody tells me don't be ashamed of it. But it is also one of those things, like, it's nothing to hide, but it's also, you don't want to get so wrapped up. I mean, if you're doing this, it's a commitment. If you're trying to be in music for a living, it's such a commitment. You don't want to lose sight of what you're aiming for. But it's just one of those things, like, you got to do what you got to do to pay the bills. And if you want to do it for the long term, if you want to stick around, obviously you got to survive. And,
Yeah.
it can be a challenge to find a job that allows you the time that you need to give
Mhm.
to, like for me, writing songs for a living is what my goal is. And so
Yeah.
to get to that point, I mean, obviously you have to have all your bills paid first and have a way, have a place to live, have a place to do that comfortably, and be able to live a life where you can show up to the co-writes on time every day, have reliable transportation, have, all the tools that you need. But I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. I don't think that it's like a stigma,
Right.
because I think the majority of songwriters and artists who, everybody, well, most everybody that I know has had, some type of job before they did it. And very few are actually fortunate enough just to be able to jump right into it and have a way to support themselves without having some type of job or some type of I mean, there's been so many artists who had full-blown careers before they ever even before they ever were an artist. I mean, Elvis Presley was a truck driver, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And just different stories like that. And there's so, I mean, of course that's an old example, but there's so many artists who basically had careers
Yeah.
before they decided to transition over into music. And I've known I've wanted to be a musician for a long time, but I've just always had to you know I've always had to have a way to pay the bills, so to speak. So
Yeah, man. And going off that a bit, I was talking. I don't know if you're familiar with Jared Morris at all. He's out of Texas
yeah, a
too.
little, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
bet.
and I was talking to him. I think his episode's supposed to drop this week actually, but I was
Right
talking
on.
to him about the same thing, and he's doing his thing, and he's also I think I'm gonna get it wrong, but he tends the horses. I think he does like
Yeah,
that
he's
kind of
a
stuff.
what you'd call a farrier.
Okay, yeah, that is it.
Yeah,
That's it. And
shoes the horses. Yep,
yeah, and the way he put it is that it's part of you. It's part of your identity. It's your story. You know what I mean? Like that's what makes
absolutely,
you you. And you know,
absolutely.
like especially being a part of the Nashville scene in that way too. Like being a part, like working at the bars and everything like that. You know what I mean? People sing about that in country songs who haven't done that either. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Just like people
Yeah,
fake being a farrier or a cowboy and stuff. You know what I mean? But you're actually
yeah,
doing it. So
yeah, yeah. There's a
it's an
lot of
interesting
people.
thing.
Definitely, man. Definitely. And a lot of people feel the need to fabricate stories and stuff. I mean, I've worked a lot of jobs.
Hmm.
I've definitely had plenty of ways that I've made my money. But yeah, that's my story right now is dealing with drunks.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Perfectly said, man. But
Yeah.
dude, let's talk a bit. Let's go back a bit and just for people who aren't familiar with you, let's just get some basics down, man. So
Sure.
you're from yeah, you're from out of Texas, correct?
Yep.
And
That's right.
so I guess we'll start it with like what got you going with like music, when you wanted to start doing it for a career, like what prompted you to make that step?
Okay. Well, I've always loved music. I mean, since I was a kid. I don't really come, in a way, I don't really come from a musical family. I have my brother played the guitar a little bit. Both my brothers, kind of dabbled in the guitar, and one of my brothers kind of was into bass and drums, and we kind of played a little bit of music together growing up. But he would mostly want to play on his own, and I played on my own. But my parents aren't really, musical. But the thing is most people in my family do enjoy music. So I would say growing up, I was around a lot. Like we listened to so many different things. And like even with my grandparents, we would like sing in church. A lot of it's, a lot of these stories start with gospel music, and definitely started singing gospel music in church. And then on the way home, we'd be listening to like old country and rock
Hmm.
and roll and stuff. And then, my mom is she's like me. She loves so many different types of music. And so in her car, we didn't, we had lots of different CDs and radio stations and stuff. And then my dad, he loves the old country and the old rock and roll, like classic rock. And, especially like my stepdad as well, real big into classic rock. And he was kind of the one that got me into that as well, that old rock scene.
Hmm.
But yeah, like, and my mom, she listened to everything, man. Still does. Anytime I go to her house, I never know what's going to be playing. It could be jazz music, it could be classical music, it could be country, could be blues, could be. She actually doesn't enjoy the rock and roll as much, but she likes all of so many other, even hip hop and stuff like that. And then like my brothers, my older brother was a big fan. Growing up, he was a big fan of like Green Day and Fall Out Boy, and just a lot of those types of alt rock bands. And
Hmm.
I remember he had a big Green Day poster in his bedroom, and I remember he got a copy of American Idiot, and it stayed on in his room for so long. And so he really kind of got me into that world. And but yeah, man, I just feel like everybody in my family just kind of pinpointed and listened to different things. And through the years, I kind of cherry picked what I like. And it's all in this big melting pot now because I listen to everything, man. And
Yeah.
I write different styles of music. And I have some that I would say are more my bread and butter.
Yeah.
But as far as genre wise, but really, I just always kind of enjoyed listening to everything. I always just appreciated music. And we had an old piano in our house,
Hmm.
and with some broken keys, was out of tune. But I loved. It's funny. Both my brothers got piano lessons, and then they didn't really take to the piano lessons. So when it came my turn, I was like, "Hey, I want to play piano," and my parents were like, "No, your brothers didn't really." So we ended up getting rid of the piano,
Oh.
and but I did end up with an electric guitar. It was passed down from my oldest brother. He didn't really do anything with it, and so I ended up with it, and started teaching myself to play guitar, and went years and years just playing in my bedroom and listening to things. And it kind of, that whole thing, playing music, kind of started, my stepdad really got me into like classic rock and blues, and just, my first real favorite bands were like AC/DC and ZZ Top and Stevie Ray Vaughan. But if you go further back than that, growing up, like with my dad and my mom, we listened to a lot of country, a lot of country, a lot of bluegrass. And so like, some of the, like, Willie Nelson was always a big one. I've always loved his music and known about him. I mean, he was a household name for me, growing up. And Ray Charles and guys like that, Buck Owens, And then I remember one record in particular that's not really related to them, but there was this movie that I'm sure, a lot of people will remember from around 2000, called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh yeah, classic.
And my mom had that soundtrack on CD, and that was in her car for years. We had that, and just, I always remember being like, "Oh brother, where art thou?" Man of constant sorrow. Just all I wanted. All those Angel Band and all the songs off of that record were so nostalgic for me. Listening to that old sound and gospel as a kid. So when we got that CD, it was like, man, I wore that CD out, and I still love. That's still one of my favorite albums of all time. And so, you know, it's kind of a diverse, a big range of music there, but I definitely always kind of leaned a little more towards the rootsy kind of a stuff, the old country and folk and bluegrass and jazz and that kind of stuff. But then there was a lot of influence growing up from the rock world too, from that alt rock world, kind of
Yeah.
2000s butt rock, we like to call it.
Oh yeah, we're
uh
familiar.
and like Puddle of Mud, and that's another
Uh-huh.
band. And it's so funny talking about going from um you know the Whites on, like some old gospel song or something from this movie soundtrack, all the way to Puddle of Mud. It's such a big, but that's really how far my influences spread,
Yeah,
and so, yeah, man, I grew up listening to a lot of different things, and even now sometimes it's hard to pinpoint like what my favorite kinds of music are, but yeah, it's I would say country music and rock and roll based, kind of, or even rock music based, so it's and that's kind of where I'm at now, is just trying to, find where my niche really is, as far as all of that goes.
sure, man. Yeah, awesome. And so, like, were you always wanting to do the songwriter route, or what? Just like strictly songwriting, or what'd you do with that?
Well, man, it's really funny because when I go back as far as I can remember, as soon as I was like really into music, well, first off, I wanted to be Angus Young from ACDC.
Yeah, man.
But that was just, you see your heroes up on the screen and you're like, man, I want to do that. But
Yeah.
really, it's funny. Before that, I remember coming up with like my own little compositions and things on the guitar, and a lot of them didn't have words. They were just amalgamations of notes. It was just the craziest. They didn't make sense as songs, but I would come up with these little ditties on guitar and piano when we had one, and I remember I'd be like, hey, this is my song, and I'd perform them for my family and friends and stuff. And I remember even one of my best friends way back from school, he would probably even remember this song that I recorded on, I think I had some really crappy old software on this old computer that we had, and somehow I got a microphone to work, and I recorded it. Just It was like one of those really old style microphones that you would use in an old school video chat.
Hmm.
And I got it to like register on the computer, and I recorded. I just had the guitar amp in my room. I didn't know anything about miking an amp. And I
Yeah.
just recorded it and burned it to a CD and took it to school and was like sharing it with my friends. And pretty sure some of them were like, this sucks, you know. But I remember one of my best friends was like, oh, that's cool, man. And we'll still talk about it sometimes today. I'll be like, remember that song you did in like 6th grade where you like did it on the guitar and brought it? And it was funny. There was this girl that I think had a little bit of a crush on me, and I was just like, "Oh, you like me? You want to buy my CD?" And she ended up buying a CD from me for like $10, and that was my first record sale. But it was so funny. Yeah, I've always kind of come up with little things, and then later on, as I got a little older and got into music, I got into songwriting more seriously. So I think songwriting, for me, as part of being an artist, I always considered like writing the songs a part of that. And now being in the industry a little bit deeper, I understand that there is more of a difference sometimes between like an artist and a writer. And well, and I guess here in Nashville, there can be a pretty clear cut difference. There's a lot of people who just write songs, and there's a lot of artists that just record songs and they don't really write that much. And, like obviously, like George Strait's a great example of somebody who is a very pure artist. I mean, he does write some things, and especially in recent years, has gotten more into writing. But all through the years, basically all those songs you heard, with the exception of like one song, or just a small number of songs, they were all other people's songs, and he
Yeah.
was purely focused on the presentation of the songs as like his image and as the way he like put the songs out, and he knew what his job was, and he did it. He was so good at picking the songs, and a lot of artists are that way today. And then there's so many great writers that are in conjunction with George Strait. Dean Dillon was his writer, and plenty of other people have written George Strait songs, but Dean Dillon's the one that stands out, having a lot of cuts on him. And so that's the thing, is like, you can pick a pretty clear cut path, whether you want to be an artist or a writer. And obviously, like the Texas thing, I've noticed a lot of my friends in that field, because I kind of came up in the Texas country scene, and got a lot of friends there. But a lot of them, it's very important to them. Like, they have to write their own songs and put them out. And I'm not gonna lie, for me, that's kind of the golden road. That's if you are an artist who also can write your own songs, that is kind of my favorite kind of artist. But it doesn't mean that I don't respect the other type of artist. Like I love George Strait, just because I don't dislike him just because he doesn't write his own songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, bringing this guy back, Willie Nelson is like, to me, he is the ultimate songwriter. In my opinion, he's basically the best there ever was. And what I love about Willie Nelson is the fact that he is such a strong writer. I mean, he had written so many hits through the years that you've heard a million times on country radio, but he is also very much a pure artist when he wants to be, and like some of his biggest songs, Always on My Mind, which I'm not sure that was his first number one. It might have been his first Grammy. I hope I don't have that wrong.
Yeah, I'm not
But that
sure.
was like one of his first biggest songs as an artist, Always on My Mind. And he didn't write that song. He did not write that. And, it just, but he's willing to record somebody else's music because he is such a strong artist as well. And, Poncho and Lefty, neither him nor Merle Haggard, Townes Van Zandt wrote that song. And there's even a live record of Willie where he sings Yesterday by Paul McCartney. And he's like, man, I have to get up and sing this for y'all tonight because from a songwriter's perspective, this is one of the best songs I've ever heard.
Sure.
And it's like, that's the kind of writer / artist that I can appreciate, is somebody who is very much purely a writer, who has that strong ability, but also has enough of an artistic, ability to be like, I'm going to make this my own, and so those are the artists I've always loved, the most, was people who write and, they write things and are able to perform other people's things with their own style. So I think that's really artistically what I'm looking to do. And, a modern example of that would be like Chris Stapleton. I mean, he's such a strong writer and has written so many hits that you heard on the radio for the past 10 or 15 years that people who aren't like hardcore fans would have no idea that he wrote it,
Hmm.
but it's like, then he's such a good singer that he'll play you his way and it'll blow you away because it's not exactly the same as the person who made it big did it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
he's still so artistically talented that he can do that. And to me, I mean, again, that's just one of the best types of artists there are to me, who have that writing ability as well. But I guess that's why they make it so big, is because they can do both. So
Yeah, yeah, and I completely agree, and I think that like that's such an underrated like the songwriting aspect. When you go to, like, we'll just use Texas music as an example.
sure.
Like if you go and see like an artist, like, I don't know who's big out there, like Co writes his own songs. Not saying that, but like I
Right, right,
like you look at these acts and you're like, you just see them on stage, like the front man, or you know what I mean. That's all you really think about. It's
right.
like, but those guys like Willie Nelson, like Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney's my favorite. It's funny you mention him. And
Absolutely one of the
yeah,
best songwriters to ever live. I
yeah,
couldn't agree with that more.
yeah. And like for with him as an example, it's like, of course the Beatles happened, and then after that you had he wrote Badfinger. Like he basically created the band Badfinger
Right.
and wrote Come and Get It, like, which was their biggest hit.
Yep.
And like that, to me, that's just like a power move, if that makes
Oh
any
yeah,
sense. It's
man.
like that just shows you like these guys out there are like, they're animals. And that's a cool
Absolutely.
thing to like strive to be, that a lot of people don't really think about. Like they just hear the song and then they're on to the next one. So
Right. Right.
yeah. Um, so anyway, when I first met you, I it was through Austin Upchurch, who was
Yep.
on this podcast a long
Yes,
time
sir.
ago, and it was when we got him out to our Rock Isn't Dead night, which was a couple years ago now.
Oh
God,
yeah, I
it
remember
seems
that
like
clearly.
yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was funny when I was texting him. I was like, "Hey, you want to come out to Nashville?" And he was like, "I don't." I think he said he didn't. I think it was like his first time in Nashville or something, or playing
Yeah,
there
yeah,
at least.
it was pretty much like the first. I don't know if it was like the first time he had ever crossed here, like city limits or something, but it was basically his. I remember it was a big deal for him. It was like his first big visit, and first it was my first perform. It was both of our first performance here. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
that was the funny thing, because when I texted him that, I just said, Austin, you want to come out and play this? And he said, can I bring Reed with me? And I'm like, yeah, dude, of course. Like, so that's how
yeah,
I got to meet you. And like, and I could
yeah,
tell you, like, that was definitely, you guys killed it that night. And like,
yeah. It was fun, man.
it was really cool to see you guys in action up there playing, because
Thank you.
the music that you guys made with Austin, it's like it's some of the coolest shit that I heard, like, out of the
Thanks, man.
Texas scene. Because like
Thanks,
it,
man.
even today, like you think of Texas music, and like in the past, it was like, okay, country music, and
Yeah,
then as time went on, it's like, okay, rock music, and then you get like you guys, and it's like, this is like punk, like pop punk, kind of like, you don't know what
yeah,
label, you don't need to put a label on it, but
yeah,
like
man.
you couldn't even if you tried. So I guess, just
Definitely.
since we're on the topic, how'd you meet up with Austin? How'd you guys get together and start playing?
Well, man, I think we kind of both, I would say roughly around the same time, kind of ish. I don't know who exactly started first, but we had been doing our own things, like like acoustic songwriter wise, just around Texas. And man, just right off the bat, like, because this had to be 2016, 17, 18. It's kind of hard to remember. I mean, I started performing kind of right out of. I mean, I think I was actually still in high school, so it's probably 2016. But around 2017, I think, is when me and Austin really hit it off, and we were just doing our own things. And I remember one of the first the first times that we met was at Larry Joe Taylor Fest. And man, we just hit it off immediately. We were just being a bunch of goofballs, partying and everything, and we both had our guitars out there, and we were going campfire to campfire. And I just remember the first time I was like, the first time we hung out, I was just like, I love this guy. He's just so fun. He's the life of the party. And to this day, he's still that. He's still one of my closest friends, man. We talk almost every day. And yeah, we were both doing our own things. And I will say, from day one, we were never really the same artistically. Austin has always been into more of that punk rock, the pop punk thing. And I know that I had even mentioned earlier that I had a lot of those influences as well. But for me, that's kind of in the background for me. I was always more into the country and country blues kind of whatever kind of music, more that old style of music. And Austin was definitely he's always kind of been into that pop punk, kind of alt rock thing. And so it was kind of flip flop for us. I was more of the country guy who liked a little bit of that alt rock stuff, and he was that alt rock guy who liked a little bit of the country stuff. And I would say even today that still kind of can be the case, because he still, every time we hang out, we still, he still talks about country music stuff that he likes, but he's still very much like, I was listening to his Rowdy Alternative podcast earlier. I was listening to that, and the bands that he was talking about however many years ago he recorded that, the story
Yeah.
so far, a lot of that, he still is so into those bands, and he still talks about those bands all the time. And so it's still I feel like we're still pretty true to ourselves artistically and stuff, because I still listen to a lot of country music and stuff. And so anyway, even though our styles didn't really seem like we would have been that close, our personalities were both just a couple of goofballs, man. And we were both we both have a really similar sense of humor, and I think that carried it very far. Because
Yeah.
I mean, Austin's one of the funniest people I know. He's just,
Yeah.
and he's one of the funnest people I know. He's got his family now, beautiful family, and so he's definitely takes on more responsibility these days, and he is a great dad, family dude. But before he got the family, he'd be down for anything, and so we would just go get into all these misadventures together and stuff. And we ended up just traveling around. We just hit it off. We were just so close of friends. We played a lot of gigs together. And so we we would travel all around Texas. I used to have this van and it was this like Ford, I guess I don't know if it'd be an Econoline, or I don't remember. It was like one of those family style vans though, with like the really nice seats in the back and the little TV and
Yeah.
the blinds and everything. So we would travel around all over Texas in that van, man, just playing gigs all over West Texas and South and East, just all throughout the state, sometimes in other surrounding states and stuff. And we just had the most fun, man. And finally one day he was like, man, I'm putting a band together, and I need basically everybody. And he needed it on short notice. And I was like, well, man, I play a little guitar. I think it'd be fun. I was looking for a way to branch out, and do something other than just sing, because I wanted to develop as a player in a band. I was like, I've never really been in a band. I've just performed on my own.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I need to get used to like being in a band. So I was like, I play guitar. I can play some lead for you while you figure it out. And he was like, cool, man. Yeah, we'll keep you on. And whenever you're ready to go do your own thing, um, that'll be fine. You can go your own way. And so I ended up having the longest temp gig ever for about 5 years. But it worked out, man. We played so many amazing gigs and just had so many amazing times. And I stuck with him. I mean, it was about 5 years through multiple lineup changes. The original bass and drums, Will and Matt, who I still love them dearly and talk to them. Not as often, but I still keep in contact with them. They live down in Brownwood, basically in the middle of nowhere in Texas, which a lot of Texas is the middle of nowhere, by the way. But um, they live out there, kind of doing their own things with their own families, and they ended up leaving the band after a couple of years, and I stuck around for a long time because I didn't want to give up the music, and Austin's just one of my best friends, man, and always will be. And so
Yeah, man.
it was really hard, even though I did hit a point. I mean, probably within the last year or two. I mean, I did hit a point where I was like, man, I kind of knew I was going to have to do my own thing. And it was very hard to split away from them because I just loved being around those guys so much. Even all the new people that he ended up bringing in, Nathan Herring on guitar, incredible fucking guitar player. Oh, excuse my language. Sorry,
No, you
Grandpa,
could
if you're
cuss. You could
listening.
cuss.
No, I just
Oh
don't know
yeah.
who's going to be listening to this. But Nathan Herring came in later on guitar. One of the best guitar players I know, hands down. I wish I could play guitar like he could, or like he can. He's still around, but I wish I could play guitar like he can. But I don't practice enough. And then he's got Riley Pinnock on drums now, and just also one of the goofiest, sweetest, kindest hearted people that I know, and just such a phenomenal drummer. I mean, he beats the hell out of those drums and is so good at it. And then now they've got Kanan Jones on guitar. And man, he ended up stepping in for me, and he's incredible too, man. Just such an all around solid guy, solid guitar player, has some of the best tones, So Austin has this really solid band around him now, and I was happy to and Cole Bedingfield on bass. I'm sorry, I meant to mention him as well. And he is just a wicked freak on the bass and has played with so many bands and is just also one of the best bass players. I can't say enough about those guys. But it was hard splitting away.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I actually cried a little bit when I told him I was leaving, because it was just it was hard. But man, I knew that I wanted to write songs full time. I knew that I wanted that to be my job. And I will always still pursue the artistic thing. And I've been working on getting places to perform here in town. Nashville's pretty competitive, and but you make it work. You get out here and you make it work. You find places to play, you meet people. But right now my priority is the creation of the music, is the songwriting itself, and studying the history of how all of that has came to be, and what a true songwriter is. And so I've got lots of songs kind of tucked away, and I've got music that I put out in the past that I'm still proud of, and I still love sharing with people. And I've got a lot of credits on a lot of Austin's different songs as well.
Yep.
And so there's lots of his songs that I had started it like in my bedroom and then brought to him, and we finished them together. Um, like Rain Coming Down,
Hmm.
Automatic. Those were songs that we finished
Great
together.
songs.
Um, and then there were some songs on some of the old, like the Breakdown record. I remember like he had started Honey and then brought it over to my house, and we kind of finished like the melody and stuff together on the back porch. And so there, man, it does kind of mix together after a while. But there was a lot of songs that we worked on together. But I'm definitely very proud of them, and I love telling people about them. I don't mind being a bit of a name dropper, being like, man, I'm just so proud. Like Automatic is still just such a cool song, and like Rain
Yeah.
Coming Down, I'm so proud of those songs, and I love telling people about them, because it's like those are legit songs to be proud of, I think.
Absolutely.
And we still collab, we still send stuff back and forth. He was in town for like some business meetings and stuff a few months back, and he came over, and we of course came over to my place, and we sat and wrote some songs, and just had the best time. So man, he'll always have a special place in my heart, as far as the music. I mean, really just as a friend, and as
Yeah.
basically he's family at this point, but
Yeah.
especially in the music part of things. I don't think um you know I'd be doing what I'm doing now if it weren't for Austin, because he really kind of gave me a kick in the ass to write the songs. I mean, he has always pushed me, be like, man, keep writing those songs. And that's why it was hard for me to be like, okay, I'm ready to go off and do my thing now, because I think, it hit a point where I was like, man, if I'm gonna write songs, I need to get out there and write songs. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so that's what I've been focusing on, since I've been here, is just getting co-writes and meeting people. I've had some really cool meetings and some really cool networking opportunities and co-writes so far. I've got some friends here in town that are doing really, really well in that game, and they've been kind of, you know, helping me, coaching and just helping me get along and everything. And I'm super grateful for them. And but yeah, man, it's been going really, really great. I mean, I've met so many cool people, and I think at the end of the day, I'm an independent writer right now. As are so many here in town. But eventually getting a publishing deal and doing that whole thing, that's my long term goal. I'm a long game player, so I'd love to, um, you know, do that full time. So we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, man. For sure, man. And before we move on from that, you talking about like your time with Austin reminded me of when after y'all played that round, we went to Red Door. I don't know if you remember this at all. And the three of us were standing there, and I hope I don't get myself in trouble for this. But
That's okay.
I remember there was like a group of girls who came up, and obviously Austin was with his girl and everything. But
Yeah.
like so they were just coming up, talking and stuff. And like I think I don't know if it was you or him. They're like, dude, just pretend you're in our band. I'm like, all right, yeah, cool, got it. So I just like walked up, like, yeah, I play bass for some stupid fucking reason. I have no idea how to play bass. I've never picked one up. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun night. I remember that.
yeah, it was fun. But yeah, you
Heck
guys
yeah.
are a great duo, and you were talking about how you're more of like the country blues root side. He's more like the pop punk stuff. But I think that's what makes your music. That's what made it so interesting. That's why you can't really put a label on it because it sounds
Yeah,
like its own thing. So
definitely.
yeah, man.
And
Uh,
we had a killer producer too, and Austin is still doing stuff with him. Josh Serrato out of Stephenville
mm-hmm.
is an absolute freak in a studio. Well, I mean, he's just one of the, and I don't say this lightly because I mean, I know I've said it about plenty of people so far, but he is legitimately one of the most musically talented people I've ever met in my life. And I worked for him at his studio for a little while, Melody Mountain Ranch in Stephenville. And he kind of let me intern, and just let me learn the ropes and just I was kind of a gopher, go for this and go for that. And I did a lot of little random odd jobs around the studio. But man, he would always hook me up a little bit, pay me a little bit, or he would be like, hey, like I'd ask him, can I come into the studio and work on my own demos? And he'd be like, yeah, man, anytime you want. So I'd be up there. I remember multiple times I'd spend the night there working on some demo or something. And that's actually the first demo for Automatic I remember I did. I worked all night on it. And it ended up sounding a little different when Austin did it, but just to have something to show him, to pitch it to him, I remember I stayed up literally all night, and at 5 in the morning, I was just wide eyed, still like on my computer, just getting it done. And then I realized what time it was, and I was like, oh, I got to drive to Fort Worth to go to work. And so I packed up cleaned the studio up real quick so they wouldn't be mad at me for leaving it a mess. And then I, hauled ass up to Fort Worth, and I made it to work on time. I
That's
was
good.
sleepy, but I made it.
Awesome, man. So you obviously you moved to Nashville.
Yeah.
So what made you want to do that? What was your first step there that it clicked in your brain like I'm gonna make the move?
Um. Well, so I have wanted to live here for a long time because of the songwriting community. I kind of had it in the back of my head like that's like, I think that's what I want to do is go to Nashville and just write, and because so many of these songwriters that I've looked up to through the years will say that it starts with a song.
Hmm.
And I've found myself through the years just kind of studying on a lot of the writers of the songs rather than just the artists. And of course, like Chris Stapleton, when he blew up onto the, it's funny to say when he blew up onto the scene with Tennessee Whiskey, he was already so successful as a writer before that. Like he had so many cuts on so many different artists and number ones that and nobody knew who he was, other than like if you liked the Steel Drivers, you know, you
Yeah.
might have known who he was, or if you lived here in town and went to writers rounds, you might have known. But you know, and I just, you know, it started with just studying up on those writers rather than the artists. And man, I have a friend here in town who's just, he's doing really well, and I don't mean to name drop, but he kind of is basically one of the reasons I moved here. His name's Drake Milligan,
Mhm.
and we grew up together, man. We went to kindergarten together. I mean, I've got pictures of us together in our Boy Scout uniforms, like, or Cub Scouts, really, not even Boy
Yeah.
Scouts. So, but you know, he's been just killing it in the country music game. And I remember several years ago when he first moved to town, he had been on a show called Sun Records on CMT. He played Elvis Presley on this
Oh,
show.
really?
Yeah, man, he started off as an actor, but he had been doing this this Elvis thing for several years as like a tribute artist. You know, a lot of people do that, and there's like a whole underworld for that.
Okay.
It's really interesting, and he had done that when he was pretty young, and then you know transitioned to doing his own thing later on. But he ended up getting a role in like a short movie playing Elvis Presley, and then that later translated into the TV show because of that short film that he was Elvis. He got to play him in this TV show, and so there's a really strong connection. A lot of people with him and Elvis. You know, even today, people be like, "Oh, he acts like him or he looks like him." And sometimes you can see it a little bit, but really he's developed his own thing, and I love it. But he was living here, and this is, you know, again 2017 probably, and he had just moved here, and I would travel up here to write with him because you know we're old friends, and I loved writing songs, and he moved here as a songwriter because he had that opportunity to be on the show, and then was basically transplanted here and was like, I'm going to do this country music thing. So he got to work on the writing and artistry right away after the show. And I mean, obviously it worked out. It's worked out pretty well for him. And man, just through the years, he just kept telling me like, you need to move here. Like you need to move here, man. You're a good writer. Like, you know, I think it'll do you good, especially if you want to do it. Cause I told him all the time how I wanted to do it. And he's like, you need to move here. And so, you know, I don't know why. I mean, I guess one of the reasons it took me a while to decide because I was doing my thing with Austin and loving it. And I absolutely am so grateful for the time that I spent with Austin and his band. And I just cannot say enough about that. I mean, I learned how to be in a band, basically. And I think the biggest thing that I learned from Austin's band, well, one of the biggest things I learned from Austin's band is how important the camaraderie is between
Yeah.
band members if you're going to be out on the road and live on the road together. But you know, it took me a while to finally get myself together to finally make that push and be like, hey, I'm gonna do this full time. And so, but yeah, Drake had told me through the years, like, you need to come here, man. You need to come here. And I finally did. And man, he's been so great to me since I've moved here. I mean, we went fishing just a few days ago and caught up and had a great talk. And but like he when I first got here, he was like, hey man, I can help you out with a little bit of temporary work if you want. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. So I actually was his roadie for a little bit when I first moved here. And I mean, I was like driving their van. They have a Sprinter van, you know, I was driving the van, you know, carrying heavy stuff, plugging stuff in, just doing what I could to help. And so I was really grateful for that. When I first got here, he helped me, you know, that helped the get me kind of settled in, was making some money, having a good job, doing that for a little while. And I ended up settling down into a day job, something sustainable, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like so I'm super grateful to him too for pushing me to move here and for just giving me loads of good advice and hooking me up with a job and everything. And yeah, I mean, he's probably my oldest friend. I mean, quite literally. And so, yeah, man, that he's really the one that kind of pushed me to get out here, and has just given me some great advice that has definitely, worked so far as getting into that songwriting game, because that's how he got. I mean, he was on the show, and that I believe that helped him, meet some of the right people. But really, he got in here and put in the work too. He
Yeah.
got here, and I remember when he first got here, he just was kind of slow starting out, and same kind of a deal. He worked his way up, and so yeah, man. I had known enough people through the years that had told me to get out here, so I finally did it, and I love it. It's a great city, a great place to be.
Good to hear, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it out there. I know like a
Yeah,
move, especially from Texas to Nashville, that's a big move, man.
it
Um,
was. It was a big
yeah.
move for sure.
So when you write, is your method any different to when you're writing it for yourself or you're writing it for another person, or is it kind of like the same way you write?
I mean, yes. They're I've never really had one singular way I approach it. I would say, I mean, if you're there are times where I would like sit down and try to be like, okay, I'm gonna try to write. And it's funny that you asked this question, because this is kind of a debate I've had with people through the years, and not everybody agrees with me when I put things this way. But like, maybe this is more of the commercial songwriter way of thinking. A lot of people, especially like in Texas, especially in that scene, if you're doing it just solely for the art, if you're doing it purely for the art and you don't care whether it sells or not, that is more, I mean, you're definitely, I would say, doing it for yourself more at that point.
Hmm.
And there's so many writers that just refuse to do anything outside of like what they, I mean, there's so many. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to write something for somebody. That's how I've actually really approached it a lot through the years. Is like, I will have an idea. Typically, the idea does come out organically. Like if you force it, sometimes, yeah, a lot of times that might not work. If you feel like you're forcing something, like I have to put myself in this box to write like this person. If you're
Hmm.
too tight in that box, it probably won't work. At least in my experience, I could definitely be wrong there. Plenty of people probably won't agree with that, but like, um, usually the idea will come out organically. But like, if I'm writing something for Austin, I'm like, what would Austin do? Like, what sounds like Austin? I mean, if I write a Tear in My Beer country song, obviously that's not going to be something that Austin would want to touch.
Right.
But also if I write something like Automatic, um, somebody on a top 40 radio, like some artist, like a publishing company here is probably not going to want to,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not gonna be for them. And that's what I've learned is like, you really have to open your mind up. I mean, if you're gonna do this songwriter thing, you have to be like commercial songwriter thing, you have to be more open to like different things, and you have to basically just try to appreciate something and everything you hear. And I mean, I had a conversation the other day. I had a lunch with just this really heavy hitter songwriter who had written literally songs I that were number ones when I was a kid. I mean, and I'm
Okay.
talking very, very heavy hitter songwriter. And he told me, if you only write for yourself, you are gonna have a hard time connecting with other people. And he's like, if you're trying to get, and I know that this might not fit the format of this podcast so well with the audience. I'm sorry if I'm kind of straying off here, but you know, because this isn't an artist. I don't know. I don't know exactly if this will connect, how many people this connect with, but like, just as an example, he was like, Jason Aldean is not going to release a song about um, a girl leaving him. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And he's
Yeah.
like, so if you are trying to get a cut, and again, I'm not trying to use him as a perfect example as an artist. I mean, but like, just as a mainstream example, he's like, you're going to want to connect with a lot of people. And so my philosophy has always been, how can I connect with a a big group of people saying maybe something they've heard without saying it the exact same way. And so, yeah, man, I do kind of tend to take that approach because, and I think that that's worked to my advantage through the years of listening to so many different people, is having a grasp on different genres, so to speak. And so, like, sometimes I can write something that sounds like this guy or sounds like this girl or whoever, and I think that that's cool. I think it's cool to be able to do that. But there's also nothing wrong, man, if you're just trying to do your own thing and stick to yourself and you want to be as true to your art as possible. That's what you need to do. If that's what you feel like where you're going to find your success, then do it, and
Yeah,
obviously so many artists have done it that way, and have found their success that way. Like, that's one thing I'll say about Austin is he does his thing, man. He does his own thing, and I think that's one reason that a lot of people love him for it. And and that if that's what you do, that's what you do. You do your own thing. You don't need to try to box yourself in to a genre or you know anything like
hmm
that. And so, but yeah, man, I have always, typically, if I'm just sitting around with a guitar, obviously that's when I sound the most like me, when I just let it come out. But there are times where I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to write something that I think this person would want. Because I mean, as a songwriter, if you're pitching to publishing companies, you don't want to write a George Strait kind of a song to pitch to like more of a rocky kind of a band, or vice versa. You don't want to write a rock song to pitch to a super traditional country artist, and um so yeah, it's just it can go either way. I mean, definitely when I write something that I feel like comes out the most organic is when I'm like, oh man, I'm so proud of this.
yeah,
But yeah, there are times where I sit down and try to formulate something around an artist, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But hey, one of my favorite bits of advice I've gotten is you're going to write a lot of bad songs before you start getting through to like a lot of the good ones.
sure.
So that's kind of my whole take.
All right, man, that's awesome, and it's great to hear. It sounds like you're holding it down out there, man. And I know, like I said, like Texas to Nashville, that's a big move, and like leaving a band, going to do your own thing, just sounds very intimidating. But it looks like you're holding it down. You're killing it, man. So thanks for hopping on, dude. And is there, before we go, is there anything like you got coming down the pipe? Anything you want to promote here? I'm curious to hear if you got anything cool coming up.
Well, man, I mean, I've been writing a lot of cool tunes. I haven't recorded anything in a little while. I know that Austin's got some new music coming out. I've got some cuts on his new project coming out. I'm not exactly sure on the details of when or what that'll look like, but some really great tunes coming out on his record that I played a part in. A
Okay.
couple of them were ones that I had pulled out of my pocket and were like, "Hey, what about this song?" And so yeah, man, Austin's got some great songs that I had a part in. Song coming out. I think I can talk about it. I don't think he'll get too mad for promoting his music. There's a song called Daisies that we did together. I'm super super pumped about. There's another song called Lying. That'll be on the upcoming record. And I love it. And yeah, man, I did kind of connect as far as, promoting my stuff. I did kind of connect here with a producer here in town. His name's Andy. And, he's been super cool, man. He's been, just was kind of digging on my stuff and was like, "Hey man, I really like your sound, what you're doing. We should do something together." So we've been working on, cooking up some stuff, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, man, as soon as I get something ready to push out to the world, I'm going to get it to you for sure.
Hell yeah, man. Reed, thanks a lot. There's a lot of people in Texas that I've came to know, and a few of them I consider friends of mine, and you're definitely one of them. And I appreciate everything you've done, and it's really
Thank you.
cool to see you grow and everything. So
Thank you.
everyone, yeah, everyone go search up Reed Barton on all the socials. If you want to plug anything specific, you got anything like socials or website, anything like that?
Yeah, man. It's basically just across the board, just Reed Barton music. I've got a few old songs on Spotify. Um, that I still kind of hold a special place for me. I recorded them several years ago. There's a tune on there called "All the Money in the World" that
I
I've
love that one.
always.
I listened to that today. That was great.
Thank you, man. Thank you,
Yeah.
man. That was a little more of a sappy, kind of a folky kind of a deal. But that's really where a lot of my bread and butter starts, man, is in that kind of rootsy country folky thing. And I wouldn't never say that I'm a folk artist, but that's what I was feeling at the time, and that's the song I put out. But yeah, man, there'll definitely be more to come. I'm just if I had to put a label on what it'll be, I would just call it country music. There's a lot of artists out there now that I'm digging on. I love like the whole Brent Cobb. I'm sorry, not Brent. Yeah, Brent Cobb
Yeah.
and Dave Cobb. Thought I was getting them mixed up. They are related to each other. But like there that whole Dave Cobb kind of a camp of the stuff he produces. I'm really love that, and kind of the whole funky country thing, and so yeah, man, I'm working on some new stuff, and I would love to put some new stuff out there into the world here before too long, and maybe even get out there and hit the road and play some music for the people.
Hell yeah, man. Awesome. So again, thanks for hopping on, and everyone also check out Reed for sure, but also check out Ray's Rowdy Alternative. We're on all the socials. Just Google us. I forget all the time what to say here. I'm really bad at plugging myself. Matt
Me
will kill
too.
me for that. I'm just kidding.
terrible at promoting myself, and that's kind of been my downfall through the years.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Take care.